Welcome to Angelo Letizia's virtual book launch with Silver Bow Publishing. We're excited to celebrate his new collection, There Is Still Beauty Here. My name is Megan Hakkinen. I'm a two-time world ultra cycling champion and the author of 2 adventure cycling memoirs. I will introduce Silver Bow Publishing, as well as the general manager, Candace James, and then I'll introduce Angelo, who will read from his new collection. Silverbow Publishing is an independent creative book publisher committed to publishing great literature in all genres. Located in Greater Vancouver, British Columbia, Silverbow Publishing typically publishes both poetry and fiction, around 20 to 30 books annually, by emerging and established international writers. Silverbow books are available in print through Ingram Distribution iPage catalog to retail bookstores and libraries worldwide. I'm thrilled to introduce Candace James, the general manager at Silverbow Publishing. Candace is a poet laureate emerita for the City of New Westminster, as well as acclaimed visual artist, musician, singer, songwriter, reviewer, workshop presenter, and she'll speak a little bit about Silverbow Publishing and working with Angelo.
Yeah, Silver Bowl is, I guess it's 12 years old, which isn't that old. Maybe it's 14 years old, between 12 and 14 years old. In that time, I've met a lot of different writers and published a lot of different books. And I must say, Angelo's poetry books are some of the best I've published, some of the best I've read. He's very unique, very original, and very lucid, too, in his writing, and yet very mystical. He's a great writer, and I've had a wonderful time publishing his books, reading them, and bringing them out into the public. And now you're going to be able to hear a little bit of his grandeur coming forward. So I guess back to you, Megan.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Candace. I'm just going to swap spotlights. So without further ado, I'm really excited to introduce our author for today. We're here to celebrate the launch of There Is Still Beauty Here by Angelo Letizia. Angelo writes mainly speculative themed poetry and is currently a professor of education at a small college in Baltimore, Maryland. His true passion, however, is poetry. The Starry Devil and Other Unwanted Poems was his debut book of poetry, and Pilgrims of Infinity is his second book of poetry. We Are the Winding Down is his book of poetry before this one. Angelo's poetry has also been published in a number of literary outlets, including Tales from the Moonlit Path, Bewildering Stories, The Atlantean, Siren's Call, Red Planet, AHF Magazine, Dissections, Fevers of the Mind, Lithorian Poetry Journal, Bindweed Magazine, and Bowery Gothic, to name a few. Angelo's academic credentials include PhD in Educational Policy and Planning and Leadership, College of William and Mary, MA in European History, Old Dominion University, BA in Secondary Social Studies, State University of New York at Cortland. Angelo joined Notre Dame of Maryland in 2018 and currently teaches courses in social studies methods, the history of American education curriculum, the history of higher education, educational law, leadership, and human development and learning. He's taught courses in cultural diversity and strategic planning in the past. Angelo lives with his wife and 3 children in Northern Maryland. We're really excited to have you here today to share some poetry, Angelo. Thanks for putting this collection out into the world and coming here to celebrate it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And, always, Candace, thank you for publishing my work and taking a chance on me. Yeah, we'll talk about my new work. So, it's a little blurry, but it's There Is Still Beauty Here. And so, one of the big questions is always, well, how do you get, the idea to write this crazy stuff? And I think, first, I think it's important to note where my influences come from. I read a lot of T.S. Eliot, and probably Dylan Thomas is probably the biggest influence on me. A lot of E. Cummings and Wallace Stevens, and just sort of, if you've ever read any of those works, those sort of Sylvia Plath as well, Allen Ginsberg. But I would also have to say I listen to a lot of music as well, and that actually factors into it. And, I'm a child of the '90s, so Alice in Chains, Nirvana, right? So all those lyrics, I have to add them to my, what inspires me. So they all kind of meld, all those kind of meld together. We have some, 19th century English poets with some 1990s grunge, and they all kind of mix together, and you kind of get my stuff. So kind of some odd inspiration there. But so this most recent book, There's Still Beauty Here. I'm not going to read the entire forward. I always put a forward in the book to begin the book. So I already read the entire forward, but I do want to read the first few lines, and then I can talk about the genesis of the book from there. It reads, is there beauty in a gray sky, in an empty field or sewage plant? There might be beauty in these things, in the waste and bald tires, and the forgotten byproducts of our contemporary life. And so the whole idea is that I do believe that there is beauty in the world in a lot of different places, and places maybe we don't look too often. I also have to say, I think I was inspired, if anybody's ever seen the movie American Beauty. It's about 20 something years ago, but asked some similar questions as well. And just, we live in a world where there's blight, there's pollution, right? And so I think we do have to look really deeply a lot of times to see beauty. And I do think there's beauty in a lot of odd and strange places if we look. And then the next lines, but beauty like truth and meaning is not waiting to be found. It must be created and fought for. And thank you, Candace, because I don't know if you remember, I had written something else, and then I had a last minute change, which Candace was graceful enough to allow me to make a change when the book was going to the press, because I wanted to change that line, because I thought it was important to say that beauty isn't just out there. We have an active part in this. We have to create the beauty. We have to see the beauty, and it's not just waiting to be found. And I think that's where poetry and literature really comes in. That's how we make beauty, maybe out of some pretty horrible and terrible situations that we're faced with, is through the arts, is how we make something beautiful. So that's really what the book is about. It's something I've thought about for a long time. When you see when you see a place, rusted out, blight, when you see dilapidated, urban buildings, when you see these things, is there beauty there? And if there is, what's our role in bringing it about? And so that's really what this book, this collection, is about. And I'll talk a little bit about the other works as well, but I'm going to read from this, and I think you'll see that reoccurring idea of beauty and what it is, and kind of asking some of those hard questions. But ultimately, I do also have to say, I'm kind of selling myself short here, but I don't necessarily know if I'm successful, right? So I end it with, I don't know how successful the poems are in this regard. In some cases, the poems, just maybe we don't always find it, right? So, but I think it's in the attempt of searching for beauty and creating it. Even if we don't actually create it, even if we don't actually create something there, it's in the search. So, okay, so enough rambling. I will start reading. And I had my one, and then I lost my. Okay, here we go. And if anybody's read this one, was directly inspired by E. E. Cummings, and this was one of my favorites that I've written. So it's called "Do We Have to Be Real?" Stars decompose, wash up on the shore. We don't need them. Rusted out exemplars, strewn in cold sand, yawn, laugh, because they have died, and we are still real. And so I'll just keep reading a few more. I did what I was supposed to. I clapped when I was supposed to at the well-dressed man and his sad stories. I listened when they asked for 7.5 million. I felt guilty because I wanted lunch, and the abandoned house with rodents still existed. The story behind that poem was, we were at a work meeting, and they had somebody coming in talking about some pretty horrible things, and I was hungry during the meeting, and I felt pretty bad about that. And that's the genesis of that poem. But I think it's normal, right, to have those types of feelings. But it also shows kind of where my poems come from. Because I wrote that as I was at a work meeting. So, instructions. I think the stars are cold. I read in my books the desert is cold at night too. I think little lizards scurry as the sun sets. I know autumn is cold. I know the desolate space is hungry. Believe. Believe stars will be jelly soon. Pray trees will be clay. Drop the fire into this hungry room and wait to be nomads again. And here I think that also touches on a theme that has been reoccurring in a lot of my works, and I'll talk a little bit about this idea of progress, historical progress. Are we progressing? Are we as progressive as we think we are? This is something that has been kicking around in my head for 25 years now, and so it shows up a lot in my writing as well. Okay, so this one's incredibly odd, and I was also reading a lot of E. E. Cummings when I was writing this, and so kind of experimenting with spacing and maybe little arrows in there, and some of them I'm going to read. I actually kind of mess with the words and the spelling, but I think you have to sort of take those chances. This is called Infinity Sleeps. Conjugate infinity to eat the terror, so I can sing in plastic in the empty space between two trash cans. Sugar is fuel, and so is dust. Cling to schizophrenic stars, heat cold, sweats through another dimension. And, I think a lot of people are always, after I read these things, when there's a live audience, a lot of people are always kind of like a little dumbfounded. What does that mean? And I was telling them it means, what you think it's supposed to mean, right? That's the beauty of this. And I have an idea of what I think it means, but there's not just one meaning to these things. This is called take back. Take back your language and its ridiculous apostrophes. To hell with your syllables and germs and all the stupid things we are forced to share. Intersubjective plastic. There is no reason for the lung anymore. No reason for. The room in the room. The room has red carpet, a plastic bird cage with only plants, a small bottle of industrial lubricant, and a broken desk. Outside the hall is a small linen closet with flowered bed sheets. Above the garage, lock the door and sit close to the window. Smoke a cigarette. It's quiet where no one wants to be. And that house, just randomly one day, I had a memory of the extra room in my grandparents' old house. They were cigarette smokers. I always remember the smell. They had this ugly, ugly red carpet. They had a plastic bird cage with no birds in it, just random stuff that you find in your grandparents' house, right? And but that was my room. That's where I played. And just one day, I randomly had a memory of that. All right. Letters in the forest. The dietitian skillfully removed each of my muscles from the tendon and bones and placed them all in the forest in alphabetical order. But the forest laughed because there is no alphabet in the forest. But the dietitian went back to my apartment and carried all my things: coffee maker, ripped couch cushions, rakes, and old lamps, and placed them all on the forest floor. All these things became indistinguishable from my muscles and the leaves, and the dietitian was finally happy. One of those really odd ones. God realized. Stray dogs nibbled at a star, and God realized the sky was only a potato peel, without an answer. A kitchen table, without the idea of a kitchen table. But you have to believe in these things to make them real. There is no more water in the well. There's no more water in the well. It has been dry for some time now. The bicycle chain is rusted. There were some high importance emails that he didn't answer. But it is no matter now. Somewhere, someone slowly strums an old guitar, and it's peaceful. And he can finally enjoy October. He can watch the leaves die. Okay, this is one where I sort of tried to play around with the language a little bit. So some of it may not make sense. Hit the app, a lop, parentheses, because I can. It's the title. Splice enters infinity. Why do you get to decide? The class is strength now. Where were you when the universe was created? No. Were you there when the universe was created? No, so I can make this up. I don't want to pick up the cards or push your wheelchair. I don't want to spell this correctly. I want a new arrangement. I don't want truth. I don't want truth. I want peace. I want silence because all color is a lie. There are too many things, too much paper and dust, too many awards. I want to fail so I can know. The surgeon's prayer. A surgeon cuts a star down every night and puts each one in a box. I asked why she was doing this, and she said, very matter-of-factly, because we don't deserve the stars. We deserve a blank universe, without stars and heat and sun, in the cold space. An egg gestates and is nourished by titanium and waits to crack and show us who we really are. And I believe that might be the title poem, even though that's not the name of the collection. The beautiful pictures that Candace puts on the cover sort of looks like a little egg on the cover of this. And so I always imagine that poem was written for that, even though we didn't coordinate on that. I don't know what the sun means now. We need a parking permit to park the car in some star, build a saint with sweet potato peels and coffee grinds, arrange all the scraps into something we can love. I wonder if I could substitute blood for a broken plastic cup, or replace the old linoleum floor with a cold November afternoon, or a cloud, or a blood pressure pill. Each diseased cell could be a library bookshelf. It doesn't seem fair that we have to live like this, that there was only one way to be. And I think that was another idea that kept cropping up when I was writing this. We have a lot of systems of order, and they're necessary. Grammar, spelling, right? These things are necessary, but sometimes they can be a little constraining. And I think that's where some of this book also came from. And I think if you sometimes can see beyond those things, you can see true beauty. Because sometimes we're locked into these patterns, and we need them because we have to have some order. But at the same point, when you start to see beyond some of that order, maybe take a glimpse beyond it, then you can really see beauty. There is beauty, even in the ruins, beauty in the empty space. There is no east and no west anymore, but we still pretend that we know things. 3 weeks ago, I was a little smarter, but now I am more certain. The medicine doesn't work. You sold me placebos, and now I can't get a refund. But I can get revenge. I packaged infinity, because only I could see it, into little hard candies and weight loss pills. I quietly wrapped up the sun and put it in your reservoirs to dissolve all your logic and show you how to die properly because you lived like charlatans. The inspiration for that one actually came from Henry David Thoreau. I've just recently read his essay called Autumnal Tints, and he talks about the October, the foliage, and how it teaches us how to die gracefully. I've always thought that was a really interesting line. After I read it, I'm like, wow, it's really a fascinating line. What can we learn from October? It teaches us how to die. So that poem, that was where that came from. Procurement. There's a funny story behind this poem. The invoices give a strange comfort, a finitude, like a quarter or a simple equation. But you cannot achieve a planet this way, or plumb the dirt, or the garden in front of your home. But we need the dark, not to know the light, but to know ourselves. And no number of invoices can tell us that. For about a year, I had to undertake this committee work at my university, and it was doing invoices. I had to do a lot of invoices every day. It was very administrative. I was like an accountant, doing invoices, receipts, so very different than what I normally do. So even I saw poetry there. All right, this is called Reality is a Privilege, but it makes me sick. Do I have to earn reality, earn the cars and houses and bits of hair and blood, each bone cell? Do I have to crawl through fire to claim what everyone else gets for free? This all must be earned for me. The only motion is earth. The only noise is the low static of the television when the vacuum starts. Jab the hose into my shoulder and suck out the blood and all the figures I use for comfort. Suck them out and start again. I have to earn reality, but I don't want it. I wonder if the president will let me create a new language. I'm tired of using the same words to describe how irritated I am over the simplest and stupidest things. This one is called Someone Has to Clean All This Crap Up. Eventually, all the broken porcelain, all the syringes and plastic, all the spoons and used pans, all the markers of our progress, someone quietly and methodically will have to place all this crap into black garbage bags while everyone else is passed out. But this job is not as bad as it seems. I will most likely do it so I can be there at the end when the universe finally dies. I will be there to clean up whatever is left. Maybe some junk, maybe some dust, some chunks of planets, and then, finally, I can remember the line from the Bible and say that I fought the good fight, smoke a joint, and enjoy the cold vacuum. So this one I had written about 20-something years ago, and it was a series of journal entries. And so I went back, revisited them, and took the ones I liked and added them all together. So it's going to be incredibly disjointed, but I still think there's some sort of flow to it. So it's just called Chronicles. I filled up the gas tank, but ironically, I was still empty and tired. I walked around the classroom to read their stories of snowflakes. The little one said to me, I like sad endings. I asked her why she said that. I like sad endings. She gave me her snowflake, and I was finally happy. That's a true story that actually happened when I was substituting for a sixth grade class. She actually said that to me. My only clue was a memory, a skeleton of something that dies. So I sift through the bones looking for proof that yesterday, that I still exist. Trees and stars step aside to form a path. They offer no sanctuary. I'm alone as I open the door to her apartment. I can't force the world to be real. Toll booths, snow, trucks are echoes in some nightmare that I had coming home from work. I'm afraid to get off the exit. I'm afraid of the roads and restaurants and all of the evil things that surround me. One night, around 8:45 in the snow, the world ended. Everyone vanished except for me. I was alone on a planet I never asked for or even liked. I still filled my gas tank, though, so I could drive around the dead towns. There's a certain sadness of daily life at the bank, on the road, and I have to record it for some reason. I'm so afraid that the mundane things of this life, the forks and hardwood floors, the wrapping paper and burnt out laptops, will come to get us. Snow in the cold night is sadness. It cannot be written about. It cannot be confessed or mended. It is simply felt in the dark, alone. So again, a lot of different little pieces that I put together for that one. Eclipse. I have so much to do. I should hang the drywall and start taking up the stained carpet. And that's true. I have a stained carpet that my wife has been on me to take up for like 6 months, and I haven't done it. Instead, I just sit and watch television and wonder if the gods ever shirked their responsibility and if one of them ever forgot to light the sun. All I want to do is listen to sad music, think about my failures. The dead trees give comfort in this regard, but their death is only temporary. The old slaughterhouse I wrote about 3 years ago was finally bulldozed, and now I can be happy. The things you don't notice. White delivery truck and pump station number 4. Unauthorized personnel keep out miles of pipes under the pavement. The trick-or-treaters will never know. Sewer and electrical closets, the space behind your oil furnace, empty schools and office buildings. 3 crows fly at night that you don't know. Okay, so Candace, I'm gonna move on. I'm just gonna do like one. Is that all right if I do like 1 or 2 from each of these? Okay, all right. And then I come back and I got one left in There Is Beauty, like you said. So in 2021, I published my first book with Silver Bow, and it's called The Starry Devil, and it's a little blurry. So I'll just read 1 or 2 from this. And this one is interesting because half of these poems were written when I was 20, and the other half was written when I was 40. I had taken a long pause in between writing and then got back into it and sent it to Candace, and she published it. And so it's kind of neat for me. This book's really special because it's 2 phases of my life, very, very different. De-evolution. We are what once was great. We are the dying star. Expansion before explosion. We are the junkyard. Careless dreams of arrogant beings who are now hairless and cold, bent back over, closer to the ground. We are the unread book, burnt for warmth. Are we really? We are, or are we just is? Indifferent existence. And if the gods did exist, they would laugh at us for this. This is Rousseau was right. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, 18th century French philosopher, one of my favorites. We reached the summit only to see below sprawling networks of carpets and plastic, slow connections of neurons and modems. All your advancements in medicine mean you only die slower. All we know, bled through a caliber, too expensive to fix. Leave me in the woods. So, little background on Rousseau. He basically said that he had sort of reached the pinnacle of society, but he wanted to go back. He wanted to live simpler. He said we're too far advanced, and we're killing ourselves, and we need to go back and live more simply. So, don't know if I want to do that, but just always an idea that I've always kick around and have always been very interested in. Ghosts and Kings. So this one, I remember this one was actually written when I was about 22, so long, long time ago. Microwavable feast on the table, cheap noodles and water. Ghosts have overrun the kingdom with fake skin and human names. They all push. They all want to sit on the throne. Ghosts of ice and skin and steel and bone haunt me at the dinner table, at the gas station, the department store, and all the territories of the earth. I see them in my water, in my noodles, which they turn to gasoline, change the floor to coal. I am hunted by these transparent things, these bloodless ghosts flying around the heart and in between the stars. They become like kings or gods in this, the darkest of heavens. So I'm going to move on to this one. I'll read 2 out of this one. This is the Pilgrims of Infinity. This one is really interesting, I think, because I was a teacher for 11 years, a social studies teacher, and, you teach something for a long time, you memorize the curriculum, and this book follows the curriculum for the social studies for 10th grade for Virginia, for 9th and 10th grade, where I was a teacher in the U.S. state of Virginia. So part of this book actually follows that curriculum. So I'll just read 2 stories, two poems from this one. One of them, named after it's called Renaissance. They each follow a historical period. Cancers and teeth, reborn, preserved in marble, smiling like a hungry god. Marble fetuses gestate, grow umbilical cords of stone to nourish these blank gods, vulgar gods of alone. who revel in their nascent capital slavery. Malignant and strong, they devour the accidents and fealty we had become. Now profitable, perspective dissects ancient wisdom into embers and dust, this time without respect, but it clears a path. We are born, the toothless starry abortion screams, and steps forward to claim the vacant thrones. And I'll just read one more from this one. This one is called 21st Century. The furniture and doors, the glass in the mirror become a language of sorts, tangible phenomes of a dusty tongue, which give instruction in the scientific management of a simulacrum. Simulacrum rearranged in neat rows across the bowels of a television. Violent garbage flickers as the carry-on chimera, now a syntax, an arrangement of gods and code, splayed on the linoleum as I walk into the kitchen. The eggs are broken, and the ovary of the refrigerator gives birth to the simulation of a secret. But can you reprogram the wooden syllables, rewrite and rearrange, and create a new language? Arrange the lamps and couch into a new grammar, a new archetype of fabric and light, guide the pilgrims in search of infinity. And then I had my third with Candace was We Are the Winding Down. And this book, again, was really about thinking about historical progress, if it exists. We can call ourselves progressive. So it's here at the end. There is only, and ever was, only one way, and that is through the stone, through the concrete, through the steel, through the electrical current, through the rubber, through the glass, through the blood, and arriving here, at this place, in this moment in time. In the beginning, there was nothing, but always with the possibility of something, so it was never nothing. So it was never nothing. Nothing needed to make that possibility extinct in order to truly be nothing. The possibility of something is teeth, it is metal and concrete. The possibility of something is entropy. It spends life until nothing is nothing. We are the winding down. We are the result. We are the powder and the crumbs, the ash, the embers on the ground. We are the groans. It won't be long now, I hope. I'll read one more from this. There are only a few words. This one is called Whimper, and this is a direct call out to a T.S. Eliot poem. There are only a few workers now, hunched over in offices. Those buildings become the only support for the aging universe. The few send emails and write reports to keep busy, but no one reads them. The employees eat lunch in small groups, but rarely converse. They go home, watch black and white reruns on old wood panel televisions. Their reward for surviving the smoke and false advertising. Okay. And then, Candace, I got one more. Returning back to There's Still Beauty Here. This is called Wake Me Up When the Show Is Over. I lay on the couch because I'm tired of infinity and its lure. I want to watch the same advertisement on the old TV. Sell me a medicine that does not work. I want to watch the same things over and over again. Leave me alone and let me be saved in the damp basement.
Very nice.
Thank you so much for that reading, Angelo. I feel like we covered a lot of ground in the last 15 minutes. I'm wondering if there is like an atmosphere or a mood that you were trying to capture with the latest collection, and if you could tell us like a bit more about that.
Yeah, so that was written, I believe that came out last year. I believe it was it was early 2024. And I think the mood is, let me try to reframe, let me try to get my words here. We are exposed to a lot of bad news, I guess. And I don't think it matters where you live. I think we're exposed to a lot of bad news. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of volatility in the world. There's nuclear weapons, there's pollution, there's just a lot of, and then just living a daily life is hard. As we were talking about earlier, insurance and sickness, and it's difficult to get along. And there's when you read some of the stats, there's what they call a loneliness epidemic, right? Like there's a lot of people that just don't have anybody to call their friends. There really is a loneliness epidemic that has stretched across the entire world. Suicide is at incredibly high levels in many countries. Quality of life has drained for a lot of people. Anyway, so you see where I'm going with this, right? I didn't want the book to be cheeky and optimistic and be like, oh yeah, everything's fine, right? Because no, everything I just listed, it's not fine. It's really, really hard. Speaking as an American, right? There's this whole idea of this American dream, and a lot of people are saying that's dead, and it's just really hard to get along. So the book is not I did not want the book to be some false optimism because it's not supposed to be like, oh yeah, everything's fine. No, it's not. It's supposed to be a recognition of how hard things are for everybody. And not just me. It's not necessarily a personal thing, right? It's just how hard things are for everybody. But the idea was when I wrote that, even in those, even in these really hard times, that there still might be things to hold on to. Again, but you have to make it. You have to put the work in for that. And so, and I think I actually stated something like that too. So it says, we as the creators, the perceivers, are tired. We are exhausted. We are angry, bitter, and resentful. And I really do believe that to be truth for a lot of people. It's easier to sit on the couch. And then my last poem in this book that I just read will make a little more sense. It is easier to sit on the couch and forget infinity. It's easier to sleep. It's easier to forget these things. I don't know if we as a civilization have what it takes to create the beauty we need to sustain us. Some we might just succumb, right? And I wrote about this. I said we might just succumb to the abandoned buildings. Let them overwhelm us, right? Succumb to oblivion and the chaos we helped engineer. Let it slowly kill us because it's easier. So the poems in this book, while not a definitive answer or a philosophical statement, grapple with this idea, namely that we need to create beauty. So I guess that's what it is. I wasn't trying to be too optimistic and saying everything's going to be fine in the end, right? But recognizing the hardships that a lot of people are facing and still trying to move on.
I love the word you used, grapple, because I think that makes for some really interesting prose and poetry because you're not, you're exploring something, right? And you're kind of fighting with it and seeing where it goes. And that kind of curiosity, yeah, leads to some really beautiful stuff. So thank you for sharing that with us today and in your readings. Candice, did you have anything you wanted to ask Angelo about, or any kind of
Um,
questions for the author?
AI, I guess, although I don't use AI. It's funny, and I probably shouldn't say this, but it's not that I don't like AI, but particularly in art when you're doing paintings, like to me, if you use AI, it's not yours anymore. It's just not yours anymore. And I see a lot of people putting paintings up on their sites and on the internet, and it's AI created along with whatever they've got. But to me, then is it theirs anymore? No, it's not. It's somebody else's that doesn't have hearts and lungs.
Very weird times. Yeah.
I just don't like it. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I got on one site where I said I didn't like AI generated stuff." Boy, everybody came down on me like a ton of bricks. I said, "Well, that's how I feel."
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I'll mention that there is still beauty here, as well as Angelo's other collections, including We Are the Winding Down, The Starry Devil, and Pilgrims of Infinity, are available worldwide in ebook and print from Silver Bow Publishing, or you can order from your local bookstore. So if you want a print copy of any of these books, you can contact your local retail bookstore, ask them to order a copy of the book in from the Ingram Spark iPage catalog. You can also purchase the book directly from the publisher, or the ebook version is available on Amazon. So those are all the places you can go out and get this great new collection. Thank you so much for being able to join us tonight, Angelo, and give that lively reading, and as well as Candice for sharing a bit about the process and making these books come to life. So, I guess with that, I will wrap things up.